Hey folks, welcome back to DCS. Today we're taking a spin in the MiG-21 Fishbed, because it's been ages since I flew this thing. This sort in particular comes off the back of a string of failures, where I think it's just from lack of practice, really. But I would die to the first thing I encountered, having never seen them. And so what I'm doing in this sort is trying to switch up my strategy a little bit. The MiG-21 is traditionally more of a hit-and-run kind of aircraft. It's quite fast in a straight line, but it bleeds speed a lot in the turns, and if you carry a lot of weight, then it all just gets even worse. So if you strap a bunch of missiles on it, if there's something on every pylon, then the performance isn't going to be too great. So what I've done in this sort instead is strip it bare, and all I've got on board are two Sidewinder derivatives on the wingtips, no fuel tank because the combat's relatively close. My initial intention was to go with hit and run tactics, but it ended up turning into more of a dogfight machine, and I ended up flying it in a similar way to how I'd utilise the F5, which is more of a gunfighter, so we'll get into that and see how it goes. So as we're closing in, I can see a gaggle of things ahead of me. There's flak bursts, there's tracer fire, there's at least 3-4 aircraft. All of the aircraft I can see right now are hostile, so we've got a Sabre turning left to right, there's another Sabre behind him following him, and there's an F5. It actually kind of looks like they're all gunning for the front Sabre. Because there's so many, I want to whittle the numbers down, so this is what the missiles are good for. R-13Ms are pretty cracked, and that one does make that turn comfortably to kill that guy. We're going to turn and look just to double check in a second. I know I'm not going to make the turn to stay on that Sabre, but then he reverses in front of me, so I go for a snapshot with the gun. No idea if they connect because it was kind of a blind shot. I was intending to just boom through after this because I didn't think it was going to pan out very well for me, but the EWR reports say that everyone else is cold, so we're just going to commit to a couple more turns and see if we can get one over on this guy. So I said I was treating this thing like an F5. When I'm in the F5, I tend to manipulate the flaps manually quite a lot so that I can raise them for energy and drop them for turn rate. What we're doing here in the MiG-21 is coming off the burner as we dive because it allows us to drop the flaps to landing mode, which block the use of the afterburner. And in landing mode, the flaps angle some engine thrust downwards and create a cushion of air, which helps you massively increase your turn rate. And that helps us to get that snapshot off on that Sabre. I'm not sure if I'd stayed in burner on takeoff flaps that we would have made that turn. Obviously the flaps also slow us down, as well as increasing our turn rate, not radius. They decrease the radius. Tighter turn, lower speed. Moving on from that, there's another F5 running cold, and I can't see him, but the missile seeker briefly picked him up. So I'm watching all this tracer fire up ahead, trying to figure out where he is, and I'm really struggling to spot him. We're just going to keep closing in until we do. And then it's around now that I actually realise that he's crashed out. He must have took some damage and he's belly landed in a field, so we're going to try and get some hits on. What you'll see here is that even on stationary targets, aiming this gun is deceptive because initially the velocity looks very high, but it bleeds off really quickly. So I was aiming high expecting them to fall and hit him, but I just shot over the top of his head. When that is basically what happens every time I try and engage anything with the gun on this thing, and it's just a lack of practice. You really need to keep your skills sharp if you're going to be in a dogfight environment. Anyway, moving on a little bit later, and we find another Sabre. It might even be the one from earlier, and I can see he's turning left, and I know that I'm not going to be able to turn. I'm not going to be able to flat turn, like turn horizontally, with a Sabre because I'm a delta wing and I'll just lose a shitload of speed. So instead we're going to pull up and climb with the burner on and turn far more gradually. So this allows us to get the turn rate that we want, but without covering as much ground, which makes it a lot easier to stay behind him. He then starts climbing and we get tone from back here, so I figure I've got one left, we might as well give it a go. And these missiles continue to impress me. I used to think that the R60 was the best missile that the MiG-21 could carry, but since Enigma blocked their use, I think the R13s are actually the best missile on the Sabre. The only downside is that you can't uncage them like you can with the AIM-9s on the F1 or the F5. So a little bit later on, and we've got a friendly Mirage F1 being tailed by an F-86. Obviously we're out of missiles right now, but because this Sabre is distracted, I feel like I can actually flat turn to get behind him. And as I do, you'll see how long it takes me to catch up to this guy. Like, I probably still should have done it vertically, just for the sake of energy conservation. But I was thinking more in terms of not being at risk from him because he's paying attention to someone else. But if I had vertically turned around, like using a loop to do it instead of a flat turn, then I probably would have caught up to him a lot faster. The Sabre can maintain about 1100 km/h on the deck, which is crazy for something that doesn't have an afterburner and for how old it is. And as we get closer, I'm worried he might fox to our F1 friend, so I take a really stupid speculative long-range gunshot just to try and draw attention to myself so that he'd start manoeuvring to defend against me to save my teammate. And you'll see that that does come back to help us out later. So again, I can't turn with the Sabre, so I'm climbing, because if I climb I can come back down on top of him. He pulls in front of my nose, so we take a shot there, but unfortunately no connections. And then again, I can't turn with him, so we're going up to come back down. Whilst I'm doing this, I'm assessing what his strategy is. Like, is he aggressive? Is he turning into me? Is he trying to run away? And he's sticking the fight, he's coming back up. So we're going to enter a roller here. I've come off the burner, I've dropped the flaps to landing, so the added drag slows us down, but the increase in turn rate means that I can just rolling scissor this guy, and look how quickly I've pushed him out in front. Unfortunately we don't get hits with the gun there, but it looked extremely close. And then this continues to work because all he's doing is reversing his turn in front of me. He should really be trying to rate fight me right now. If you try to reverse your turn, if you play the one circle against a MiG-21, then you're just helping the MiG-21 out. The MiG-21 has very good nose authority, but it has a really shitty sustained turn because it loses so much energy when it pulls AOA. He continues to play us in the one circle, so every time we're coming down, I'm dropping the flaps to landing and I'm coming off the afterburner. And every time he goes up, I'm raising the flaps to takeoff and punching the afterburner in. Every time we go up, we're getting our altitude back because we have a thrust advantage, which helps us use the energy when we come back down. And had I been able to let this run its course, I'm sure that we would have killed him eventually. But as it stands, the F1 comes back and mobs him up. And we are at extremely low fuel right now, like 200 kilos, or it might be litres, I forget. But we're not going to use the burner, and we're just going to head back to land. I think it's Hammer that we're using as an airbase right now. Nearest contact's 9 kilometers away, so we should be good to head back and land. So on final, and our speed is dropping below 600 kilometers per hour. I tend to drop the gear at quite a high speed in the MiG-21 because once you do, it causes so much drag that you rapidly bleed the speed off. And this thing likes to land around 400 to 350 kilometers per hour. I'm using the landing flaps here, but I don't use the throttle, which is dumb, and that's why my landing is so horrible. If I had punched the throttle to like 80%, bearing in mind these flaps act like the VTOL nozzles on the Harrier, punching your throttle gives you a lot of like upward, it kind of propels you upwards, but the weight of the aircraft cancels it out. So you get a very buttery smooth landing. It's like landing on a cushion of air. But a lot of people don't like using the landing flaps on the MiG-21 because it makes them slow and it blocks the use of afterburner, but they don't realise that it actually gives you like downwards thrust as long as you actually punch the throttle, which is what I should have done, and the fact that I didn't is why that landing was horrible. So, do as I say, not as I do. Anyway, that's the end of the video, folks. I hope you've enjoyed. If you want to see more, then obviously subscribe to the channel, hit the like button if you liked, and it helps with the algorithm. If you have any questions or comments, I'm sure to leave them below and I'll try and get back to you. If you want to get in on some of this, then check out the Discord server. Just please don't join it if you're a bot that tries to sell Viagra, because I'm sick of removing those. If you want to help support the channel financially, then you can buy a model from Air Models to get something out of it. You can hit the thanks icon below for a one-off donation. or you could join as a channel member where the highest level gets you early access to new videos. But that's it from me today, folks. Thanks a lot for watching again, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.